McDonald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge, and Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride. Wow!
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Weddle got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did!
Racing down the sideline is a key to lead.
Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA!
Picked off by John Johnson.
Well, Dante Fowler, who is able to get to breathe. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 243. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen, and joining me, as always, is Alexis Kraft. And this is the episode following the Rams' Sunday Night Football win over the Browns. It was ugly, but 20-13, and the Rams go in the win column for the third time this year. It's 3-0 on the season. They are tied with the San Francisco 49ers for the division lead. And, of course, if the season ended today, the Rams would win that tiebreaker. Not saying that it would end today, but the Rams would win the tiebreaker, due to strength of victory. So that is something interesting to mention. We'll, talk more about this game, obviously. Before we get into it, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. We are going to start ramping up some giveaways. And to enter those and be a part of those, you're going to need to subscribe. You're going to need to make sure that you're reviewing and liking our stuff. So stay tuned for that. Without further ado, because Alexis here, she's got a lot to say about this game, and I think you guys need to hear it. So here is Alexis Kraft on the Sunday Night Football game that was ugly, but ended up in a W.
Yeah, Jake, and that's just it. I mean, here's the reality of the game. I'll get into specifics about the game and things that were atrocious and need to be worked on and should be called out. But here's the bottom line. We won. A win is a win. A 3-0 win is a win. A 45-0 win is a win. So I was really happy that we were able to pull out a win. We pulled it off. And, that's that. Well, we left Cleveland 3-0. I'm happy about that. I'm glad we got the win. That's that. Now, here is where I might differ from other people. I think that there's no right or wrong way to be a fan. There's no right or wrong way to necessarily even be an analyst, because everybody's got their opinion on things and everybody has things that they think are bigger deals or lesser deals, etc. But here is where I am not happy. I think that anybody who watched that game and doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that the Rams played for the majority of the game average or below average, is delusional. And here's why. Now listen, yes, like I said, we got the win. If we would have won by a field goal, I would have taken the win. I would have been happy that we won. But now that we're past the winning part, we have to address these issues, because the reason why fans should be upset or should at least be questioning some of the play calling and some of the play by the Rams players is because guess what? We're going to play teams that are a lot tougher than that Cleveland Browns team this season. That Cleveland Browns team that we struggled against last night had a depleted secondary. I don't think they had one starter in their secondary. And their defense, they did not. Yeah, and their defense did not play great. Yet, for whatever reason, we struggled against this team. Now, it starts from the top up, okay? Here's the big issue from what I'm seeing from people on Twitter. And by the way, I fully support 1,000% anybody who wants to speak out and voice their frustrations with the Rams. There's always people on Twitter who get really mad when other Rams fans are angry or have questions or confused. But guess what? When you're a fan, you have a vested interest in a team and you want to see your team do well. And if you don't see your team playing as good as you know they can play or making stupid decisions, you have every right to call them out for it. And guess what? Rams fans aren't even the worst. Look at Steelers fans. Look at Packers fans. Even look at Bears fans. Look at Raiders fans. Okay. This, last night people were pretty upset, but if you think that's bad or that's harsh, I mean, go to stadiums where teams will boo their team for not playing like elite when a team is playing average and they're still getting booed. So that's my little spiel on that. But here from the top up, the play calling last night, and Jake, I'll let you talk on this because I mean, I think might have a little bit of a better insight than I. But there was just some really, really questionable play calling on Sean McVay's part. One of the issues with the play calling last night was the run game. I'm going to let you talk about that. What were your thoughts on that?
I just think they lacked balance. It was the way that they decided to attack this Browns secondary. I get, obviously everybody's out there. You have TJ Carey, obviously, you have Terrence Mitchell. It was Eric Murray and I believe Jermaine Whitehead as well as Justin Burris. And I mean, I just mentioned two guys that had interceptions on Jared Goff, Justin Burris, the nickelback, and TJ Carey, who made a beautiful play. And let me just say this. As bad as Jared Goff played, I don't think we're giving enough credit to a depleted Browns secondary that made plays. They gave up 200-yard 100-yard receivers, right? Everyone would be like, oh, that's trash, right? That's just total garbage. It was Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks, right? And, last I checked, they held the Rams to 20 points. This powerful offense, I just think to me, I thought they played lights out really for what they had to go up against. Making plays, TJ Carey with the huge diving interception. Again, I think Jared Goff kind of tipped his hand by, staring down his receiver, which is something he's done a lot this year. And then the really ill-advised throw into traffic near the end of the game to Justin Burris. But before, we even talk about the passing game, you brought up the run game. And I'll say this right now. Everyone is livid about Todd Gurley. Oh, 14 carries, 43 yards. What is going on with Todd Gurley? He is not the same. I'm done with him, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let me just say this. Todd Gurley had nowhere to run in the first half. The second half, he came out, he had a couple mashing runs. Like he came right up the middle. He put some mustard on it at the end of every run, really just physical runs. That was really it. For the majority of the game, Jared Goff threw 38 passes, okay? They did not run the football very much at all with Todd Gurley. And if you want to get on Todd Gurley's case, Robert Woods was second in rushing, not Malcolm Brown, who has been very impressive as of late. Darrell Henderson doesn't even log a carry in this game. So I guess my thing is, at the end of the day, you look at the run game, and there obviously wasn't balance. The Rams didn't use Malcolm Brown. So to pin this all on Todd Gurley and say that he had, he's injured and all, it's so overblown. I'm so tired of hearing about it. Todd Gurley is fine. Okay. The Rams offense as a whole is just not up to speed. They're not where they're going to be later on in the year. Oh, I wonder why. Austin Blythe is out. Tyler Higbee's out. People are discounting the fact that Tyler Higbee is such a force as a blocker. And I know people are going to laugh at me for saying that, but one, he's turned himself into a quality receiver. He was a really good receiving tight end coming out of Western Kentucky, but more importantly, he's developed as a blocker. He's easily the best blocker on the team. And regardless of what you think, the drop-off as a blocking tight end from Tyler Higbee to Gerald Everett is just astounding. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, by Austin Blythe being out, you now have to start Jamil Demby. Okay, Demby doesn't start football games. He didn't start one last year. He barely even saw the field last year. I don't even think he did. And then this year, he sees the field, last game and didn't look all that awful. I know people were saying he was terrible. This game, he struggled quite a bit. But furthermore, it's not all Demby's fault. You have two first-year starters on the offensive line, and you're in week 3. Andrew Whitworth hasn't even looked all that great to this point. Rob Havenstein hasn't. As a collective unit, the offensive line that won the Built Ford Tough Offensive Line of the Year award last year is not the same offensive line. I said it on social media. I posted, I'm like, the Rams desperately need, or they miss, Roger Saffold, and you can see it in the run game. So Todd Gurley, Malcolm Brown, they're getting what they can. Obviously, they're not running the football a ton, and when they do, there's not really a ton of opportunity to really make find a crease and really hit a hole. But that's going to come. And so I think you really need to be patient on that. I think the real question mark is Jared Goff. I think it's fair to say, and you've told me this, it's not rust anymore. This is week 3. Starting quarterbacks don't play 3 full games in preseason. So, week 4, you should really start to see him for what he's going to be this year, unless it's just going to be a bad year where he's all in his head. The Super Bowl game has really bothered him and he hasn't moved on from it. I don't really buy that, because I think this is somebody that does a really nice job of just moving on from play after play, no matter how bad it is. This is somebody that moves on very quickly. It's one of his key traits about him. Very, short memory, right? But in my opinion, I think if Jared Goff does not show you improvement this Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and puts the Rams defense in another tough situation to close out a game, you can start to be worried.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've been saying. I mean, listen, you and I have talked about this off air a lot, and it's not, and like you said, it's not rust anymore. This, 3 games in, I understood the first game. The second game you and I were at, and I was less than impressed, but said, you know what, second game, whatever. Now the third game comes, and it's a complete question mark. And the reason that I'm being tough on Jared Goff is because I do love Jared Goff, and I think he's extremely talented. I think he has the potential to be playing 1,000 times better than he is. If I didn't think he could do it, then there would be no point in being angry and talking about it. I'd say, oh, that's just how he is. But the reason it's concerning is because I don't think this is actually the type of play that he is going to play at for the rest of his career, or that he should. I think he can play 1 billion times better than he's been playing, which is why it's really, really frustrating to watch him go in there and act like he doesn't know what he's doing, and to make these throws that are nowhere near the receiver, or to hold on to the ball and get sacked, or, to do X, Y, and Z. It's very frustrating, and it's something that he has to fix by next Sunday, because if he goes into game 4 and plays the same way, then everyone's going to have a real big problem. The fans are going to have a problem. The team is going to start to worry. Jared Goff is going to start to worry because it's week 4. You're 4th of the way into the season. It should be corrected by now. So that, to me, is very, very frustrating to watch him play like that, because there was a lot of times, to me, that the play was 100% on him. The reason that a play didn't work out, and we had to get our offense out of there or whatever. But I will say, like you touched on, there was a lot of instances where I didn't necessarily put that entirely on him. The offensive line is crumbling, like, really bad. You and I, when we were, through preseason, and as the season has started, you and I have expressed on the show that our biggest worry for this Rams team was the offensive line. I think that has kind of come to fruition, and then we lose Austin Blythe, and we have Demby in there, and let's not even get started on Demby with the fouls and just completely folding, et cetera, et cetera. So the offensive line was what we were worried about, and we worried about it for good reason, because look at them now. I mean, yes, Jared Goff a lot of the time was holding onto the ball too long. I'll give them that, but for the most part, they folded so fast that Jared really didn't have time to make any good decisions. When Jared had time, he completed his passes. Like, when everything worked, when the offensive line gave him some breathing room, I thought he did fine. But when they folded in less than 2 seconds, Jared Goff panicked, and 99% of the time when he panics, it didn't work out. So that was really, really frustrating for me. And just honestly, it made me cringe watching just the combination of him and the offensive line. I mean, like we said, thank God we have a defense, and let's get into the defense, because if we did not have this defense, we would have gotten slaughtered in that game. And that's not even up for debate. If we did not have the defense that we have, we would have lost that game to a depleted mediocre Cleveland Browns team. Because let's be real, that Cleveland Browns offense was built for success, and we got lucky that they did not play as well as they should be playing, because they haven't all season. And we got really lucky. I mean, you've got Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb. Luckily, David Njoku is out, because he has also been a force for them on that offense, their tight end. So, we are lucky that our defense, has been playing very, very well. Two guys I want to touch on. Aaron Donald finally got his first sack. He should have had a ton already this season. But teams have been, relatively good at double teaming him so far this season, but he was still able to get one on Baker. And then Clay Matthews, who has had 3 sacks this season already. So, that was a bright light. But I mean, our secondary played good, but I'll let you get into the defense, because, that was the reason we won the game.
Yeah, certainly. I think Wade Phillips deserves so much credit. I mean, I said this, first year, it's about installing, it's about putting together your pretty much your system, right? I mean, it's not necessarily the guys that you're going to have in year 3, which is the final year of Wade's contract. It'll be very interesting with that. But, first year, you're dealing with some of the guys from the previous regime, because you came over with Sean McVay. So you still have Fisher guys. You still have Greg Williams guys. And then by year 3, they're pretty much your guys, right? I mean, we do know that Corey Littleton is on a 1-year, basically a franchise tender. It was a restricted free agent tender or whatever. He signed for 1 year. So that, again, he's going to need to be signed, or if they move on from him and they have their guy, that'll be interesting, especially since they did just lose Dakota Allen, a guy that we raved about so much on this podcast in preseason. He's now a Raider, but that's neither here nor there. So, you talk about 1-year deal with him. You're talking about the fact that Marcus Peters is impending free agent. Aqib Talib, Michael Brockers is getting up. I mean, he's eventually going to need an extension if you want to bring him back. So, there are some pieces there that, they will filter and they will find exactly what they want. But right now, this is the best unit Wade Phillips has had since the Super Bowl Broncos. I think it's very safe to say that. I mean, you look at the Super Bowl Broncos team with Aqib Talib and Chris Harris Jr. and Bradley Roby in the secondary. And I mean, I think this team, I'm not saying they're a better defense, but I think they could be. I think they have a ton of talent. I think really their biggest weakness is the defensive line, albeit they have the best defensive lineman in football, Aaron Donald, but after that, I just don't know how much better they got in regards to losing Ndamukong Suh and letting go of John Franklin Myers. With the linebackers, they definitely got better. You kind of have to look at Corey Littleton next to Bryce Hager / Taylor Rapp. Rapp plays the majority of the game, so you would almost say Taylor Rapp is the extra guy there. They basically roll with 3 safeties like we expected. And then, of course, the 3 safeties, having Taylor Rapp, having John Johnson, who makes the game-winning play, and, of course, Eric Weddle. I mean, and then you're looking at your corners, Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters and Nickel Roby-Coleman, and I mean, he gets a lot of flack, but Troy Hill came in a crucial spot and had an unbelievable pass breakup on Odell Beckham Jr., and it was called pass interference in some really odd fashion because it was not PI. I just have to say that. But the point is, this defense is really good. You add Clay Matthews, you bring back Fowler for a year. It's going to make decisions in the long run very tough, because when you have that many really good players, you can't bring them all back. Like you saw with the end of the Legion of Boom in Seattle, you just can't afford to sign everybody. So there's going to be some interesting decisions here. I just really want to highlight the job that Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, and Nickel Roby-Coleman did on Sunday Night Football against, a receiver group that, was without Rashard Higgins, who I think is very good, very underrated. But they went up against the best receiver. I believe you and I believe he's the best receiver. Right? OBJ. Yeah, OBJ is the best receiver in football.
Yeah.
So you and I both believe that. And they went up against the best receiver in football, and Jarvis Landry, who's one of the most nuanced route runners in the game. And, he has great hands. He's just a very reliable receiver, and he's great after the catch. And they held those guys. I was shocked when I saw the box score. Like, it made sense because obviously you watch the game, but just throughout the game, they both had 9 targets. Jarvis Landry hauls in 3 of them for 62 yards. That's some pretty good average per catch. They only held him to 3 catches, so it didn't really matter. Odell Beckham Jr., 6 catches, 56 yards. Their third leading receiver was Nick Chubb, 4 catches, 35 yards. You look at the Rams, Brandon Cooks, 112 on 8 catches. Cooper Kupp, 11 catches for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, you can say all you want, that OBJ and Jarvis Landry are better than Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks. But it took, and don't get me wrong, I think the Cleveland Browns secondary played well, but I was so impressed with the Rams secondary because I just felt like they had such a tall task. I felt, I watched the Browns and Jets game the night before we took off from LA back to New York. And I just felt like Odell Beckham Jr. had finally been used correctly, had finally been unleashed. You watch that game, he has 160-something yards. I feel like he's just in for a huge game against the Rams, and they held him in check. And, part of that was the pressure on Baker Mayfield. Part of that was Baker Mayfield not really, standing in there and being able to make the throws. But a lot of that was because of the Rams secondary. And there was a really nice coverage sack by Clay Matthews, which you can't knock a pass rusher for making a coverage sack. He's just doing his job. But there's a great coverage sack by Clay Matthews because literally everyone was manned up to the point they were like glue. Nickel is the guy that kind of gets, left out of the equation. He had a huge pass breakup on Jarvis Landry near the end zone. That I don't think gets talked about enough. And I just think this is a great win for the defense. The offense needs to work. They're going to get better, but I think the thing that you need to take away from this game is that the Rams went into Cleveland, all of the hype in, Cleveland's favor, and albeit, they had guys out. But at the end of the day, these are NFL caliber players. And the Rams went into Cleveland and they won the game, and they haven't won on Sunday Night Football. And I don't even want to know how long, because the last 3 meetings, I believe, and you can quote, you can tell me if I'm wrong. The last 3 meetings were the Eagles, the Bears. Bears game was atrocious. The Eagles game, they had a chance at the Coliseum and they blew it. And the game right before, the one that was flexed for the NFC West title, it was basically the NFC West title game in Seattle back with Sam Bradford and Denari Alexander and, the drop he had. And those are the last 3 games I believe the Rams have been on Sunday Night Football. So this is their first win in quite some time. And it sounds crazy, but you've seen them on Sunday Night Football now twice. Last year, they looked pitiful, and they get the job done. Again, it's ugly, but there's plenty of football to go, and being 3-0 at this point is, the best place that you can be in. So, again, issues on the offense, they'll get it sorted out. You don't have to be worried about Jared Goff unless he really stinks it up week 4. And the defense has reached another level under Wade Phillips.
Yeah, like you said, we got the win. That's what mattered. I would take any win. I would take a 3-0 win. I would take a win by a point. I wanted the win. I got the win. But, I just think that there's a lot that needs to be worked on before game 4. I think we're lucky. Going into game 4, we're going against the Bucs, and we'll do a preview game against the Bucs, so I won't really get into it, but that's a team that I do think we should be able to beat. But you know what? Anything can happen in the NFL. Like you said, these are all NFL caliber players. You can't go into any game just expecting to win, and think it's going to be handed to you. You have to play well. So I am, I'm worried about the offense. I was not impressed with the game last night, and, people are not fans, when people like me say that and they think I'm too hard on the Rams, but listen, I think it's naive to sit there and say, well, they won and that's what matters. I'm going to move on. Because if you think like that, and you think the Rams should just keep doing what they're doing, the Rams aren't even going to go to the playoffs if they played like they did last night. And that's just the reality. They have to get better. There's always room for improvement with any team. The Rams are no different. I'm not shaking in my boots thinking that, they're going to completely tank or anything like that. I just think there's little things that they need to work on, and it's obviously all centered around the offense. And I have hope that they'll get it fixed by week 4, and that we'll have a much happier week 4 recap next week.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you there. I think, you said it earlier and you said it pretty well. Everybody has stock in this team. If you're a fan, you have stock. You deserve to be able to say what you want. And some people aren't going to like it. And, people, of course, are able to say what they want. But, at the end of the day, I just don't think you can really knock anybody that is a little skeptical of Jared Goff in this, early in the season. I mean, I'm not saying, like, if you're saying stuff like Gurley's done, Jared Goff ain't it, like, maybe not that, right? Because Jared Goff is it. And that's why, again, you're upset because you've seen it. You've seen Jared Goff, absolutely take his play to another level against the Vikings last year in week 4 and the Chiefs last year in week 11. And I mean, to me, the Chiefs game, regardless if that was a fluke or not, which I don't believe it was, Jared Goff is always going to be expected now by Rams fans to perform at that level. And whether it's fair or not, I mean, at least, like, I'm okay with Jared Goff having a 300-yard game and maybe, one touchdown and just managing the game. I'm also okay with him throwing 5 touchdowns, but I don't want to see him in the 3 call, as far as the turnovers, I don't want to see him at the number 3 with turnovers. I mean, the fumble was bad. The fumble, you gave them 3 points right before the half in a situation where I don't think the ball should have been thrown. So I kind of pinned that on McVay a little bit because I felt like they should have run the ball and just, been conservative and punted it away. You just didn't have good field position or a lot of time. And so sure enough, Cleveland takes the lead when really they're getting outplayed at that point. And then you talk about late in the game with 2 minutes to go and you have a 3rd and, short situation. And you decide, and honestly, it might have been a first down. I mean, I'm going to be real here. It was a short. It looked like he got the first down, but it's 3rd and short, and Goff is throwing the ball, and he misses Gurley on the check down, which that would bring up another point. I don't know why Todd Gurley isn't used as a pass catcher out of the backfield anymore. Just go back and watch the film from 2017. Might have been the most dynamic offensive player I've seen since LaDainian Tomlinson, but again, that's neither here nor there. My point is that he missed his check down, and then he threw the ball ill-advised into a sea of defenders trying to get it to Brandon Cooks. Again, I don't know why Sean McVay had Goff throwing there. Maybe QB sneak it, maybe run the ball. I don't really get it. So I think, with 2 minutes to go, you get that first down's over, right? Instead, the Rams fans had to sweat that out because of the miscue by Jared Goff, and in my opinion, the wrong play call by Sean McVay. And I think as much as, we give Goff a lot of crap, I think Sean McVay, and McVay was my chosen one, right? This is the guy that I wanted. But I have stock in this team. I love Sean McVay. I think McVay has taken the Rams to new heights. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But, to sit there and be like he's boy wonder and can't do anything wrong, that would be not really true. I mean, this is somebody that does get in his head. I think he's so intelligent and knows what he's doing, but oftentimes he tries to get too cute, and sometimes he outsmarts himself. I think in the Super Bowl, he got in his head. I've said it from day one. So to me, I think in this game and in the Saints game, as you and I both saw, there were times where, maybe around the end zone, right around the red zone, you try and maybe throw a fade. Goff has the accuracy. You have 6'3" Josh Reynolds, 6'2" Cooper Kupp, 6'5" Tyler Higbee, but instead they go with a bubble screen with no blocking. A whole point of a screen is having blockers. So I guess really just there's been some questionable play calling, and I think it's just, again, it's early on. I know someone misquoted us on the podcast. I wanted to confirm and just let people know. But the last podcast, I said Sean McVay could be rusty because he did not call plays, albeit, they call vanilla offense in preseason. He didn't call the plays. It was Shane Waldron. Shane Waldron called the plays in preseason, not the regular season. So don't go misquoting me again. Preseason, he called the plays, and Sean McVay is now calling them. But I do think that might have something to do with it, as crazy as that sounds. But, really just kind of wrapping this thing up, with Tampa Bay, I guess we'll just kind of tap on it a little bit. Tampa Bay, let's just talk really quickly about the Tampa Bay Giants game. Now, Tampa Bay goes down the field and they had a chance to win the game. They lose on a missed field goal. So, I mean, I know people are just putting it in the win column, but I think Tampa Bay is going to be a tough opponent. Coming off one of the worst ways to lose a game, shanking, a game-winning field goal, 30-yard field goal and losing to a rookie quarterback. But what are your thoughts on that?
Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones. When you and I did a live stream when Daniel Jones got drafted, and I said, I hope he's the next Tom Brady. And, I'm not saying he's going to be. I mean, obviously that's, a pretty far-fetched statement, but I'm happy for him. I think that the Giants, they're not obviously, I won't say they're playing great, but, I think they're getting there, and I vested interest in the Giants. I have a soft spot for them, so I want to see them do well. Obviously we're going to get more into the Bucs later this week. We'll have a pretty good recap or preview of that game. But as of now, I'm not entirely too worried about the Bucs. But, we'll get into that next episode.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm entirely too worried about Jameis Winston, but, stranger things have happened. But that is going to do it for our show. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, it's a good win. Stop, worrying. I mean, they are 3-0. And the 49ers are also 3-0, but the Rams get to play them twice. So also stop worrying. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Jake, Alexis, we're signing off. Take care.